Hello, welcome back, and thank you for tuning in. There are so many videos on YouTube, and you chose this one. Now, we're pretty excited because we're doing something that we don't usually do on the show. We're talking about a current event as it is happening, and that is the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Yeah, I know, it already sounds kind of like a snooze fest, right? Well, if you've been on Reddit, then you have probably already heard about the TPP. It is a free trade agreement, and free trade is one of those tricky buzzwords that you hear pundits toss back and forth on the news, but never quite explain what it is. It just sounds good. I mean, people like free stuff. Trades sound like something people do. Free trade, yeah, boom, you win. But free trade is actually something a little bit more specific. It's an agreement between two or more countries to sell different products to each other without any tariffs, without any quotas or other trade barriers or constraints. So this would mean that if the United States was selling autos in Japan, for instance, that they would not have a Japanese tariff on these autos, and then the price of an American car would be more competitive, right? So that's basically what it is, and free trade has a lot of supporters and a lot of opponents, and something very important to recognize about free trade is that this is not the first free trade agreement that's ever happened. There was something called NAFTA beforehand, CAFTA. The United States currently has free trade agreements with around 20-ish countries, and if the TPP happens, we'll add another boatload of countries to that list, 11 not counting the United States. But unlike some of the other free trade agreements, there are a couple of concerns that even supporters of the free trade agreements have addressed. So let's look at 5 of the biggest. 1, there's something called evergreening. The United States is pushing on behalf of pharmaceutical companies to allow these companies to do a process called evergreening. So here's how it works. Normally, when a pharmaceutical company makes a new drug, they have a monopolization on the product for a certain amount of time due to their patent. And this means that generic drugs, which might cost $3 instead of $23 or $25, are illegal under this patent time frame, right? Evergreening is when pharmaceutical company A says, I'm going to make this drug. Matt, just make up a name of a drug. Okay, Tramadol. I'm going to make up this drug, Tramadol, our pharmaceutical company. And when our patent expires, we're just going to patent this part for the pill itself, right? The regular pill. But then, when our patent goes up, we're going to make a new patent for the same drug, Tramadol, in a gel tab. And then we're just going to keep extending the patent as we slightly change things like the medium in which this drug exists. Now, why is that important, right? It seems so specific. It's important because we're not just talking about extending the patent of throat lozenges or something. We're talking about drugs that can be saving lives that people can't afford. Because the sad truth of the world is that many of the places plagued by horrific disease are places that are also plagued by horrific poverty. So people literally cannot afford to buy these drugs. And of course, to be fair, pharmaceutical companies are not charities, they are for-profit entities. So whether you agree or disagree with their strategy, that's totally what they're doing. Number 2, it might not actually work. Like, it might have the opposite effect. The way that supporters advertise this kind of stuff is that it will be better for the economies in each of the countries involved, and then ultimately better for, the American worker or the Vietnamese worker. However, opponent groups like the website Public Citizen say that free trade has increased the U.S. trade deficit each time it's been implemented, and they point back to numbers with the earlier agreement NAFTA, which they say accelerated unemployment. 3, but it didn't accelerate unemployment for everybody. Yes, the opponents of these things say that a very small group of people, at the very top of the pyramid, are going to make out like gangbusters, because this will allow their businesses to have a larger, more global reach and access to markets that they ordinarily would never be allowed to enter. And when I say the rich, I guess it's important for us to say, we're not talking about necessarily one or two individuals. We're talking about wealthy corporations. And that is one of the big sticking points for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. People are worried that the corporations are helping write the laws that are being negotiated in these trade agreements. And the idea here is that the corporations are playing too much of a role, that they're stepping in and doing what should be the job of negotiators and governments. And that's not unprecedented, at least in the United States. This kind of corporate state handshaking occurs in organizations like ALEC or in other similar things, think tanks also, watch out for those. And one last thing for that point, people are concerned, opponents of TPP are concerned that it gives too much control to corporations because litigation would be handled through international tribunals rather than the courts of the country in which the case or conflict occurs. And so people who are frightened by this idea have these hypothetical examples where they say, okay, company A violates environmental standards, right, in this country. And under the TPP, the company resolves this agreement internationally, and the country doesn't really have a voice anymore in what's happening. 4. The Trans-Pacific Partnership includes 12 countries, right? From all across, all sides of that ocean, North America, South America, Southeast Asian countries, Japan, but it has one very important piece of the puzzle missing: China. China, literally the biggest, most important state in Asia, is not quite on board. So how is that going to work, and how trans-Pacific is it really? The Chinese government, or at least officials in the government, have portrayed this as an attempt by the United States to contain China and prevent it from becoming a superpower. 5, and I don't know about you, Matt, but this is the most disturbing thing to me. Some of these other things are sort of philosophical approaches to business, right, or government, but this one is scary no matter what side of the political or ideological line you fall on. Ladies and gentlemen, number 5, the TPP is secret. Don't get me wrong, the laws or agreements that they make will still apply to you, will still apply to your country, but you're not going to get to read them. As a matter of fact, one of the only reasons that we know some of the substance of the TPP is that WikiLeaks released some drafts of the agreement along with notations and what people are pushing for. Now, in all fairness, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative said that an amount of secrecy is required so that the negotiations can work. But to other people, especially people who have been reading about this or finding out about it through wild speculation and stuff, the concerning thing is that there's a secret here, which, Congress is also fast-tracking this and really wants to get it signed. But they're saying there's a secret here, not because it's part of negotiation, but because it's stuff they don't want you to know. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for our upcoming episode in the original format on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You can also check out our audio podcast. We're all over the internet, and we're always looking for new ideas for new episodes. So go ahead and toss me a like and let us know what episodes you want to see next in the comments.